If your child is struggling to read or struggling to spell, and you feel like you have tried everything, or maybe you're waiting for the school to figure it out, or maybe you're just not exactly sure what's going on, this series is for you. I'm Christina Abels. I am the founder of Beautiful Minds Learning Center, and I'm a structured literacy dyslexia specialist. So that means I work with kids who have dyslexia or are just having difficulties with reading or writing or spelling. I'm also a mom of 2 kids with dyslexia, and I myself have dyslexia. So when I say I understand both sides of this, I mean it from the inside out. So this is actually part 1 of Reading That Actually Sticks. It's the Literacy Lens series that I am doing for the month of June. And we're actually today going to start at the very beginning. We're going to start with the foundation that everything with literacy is built on. It's called phonemic awareness. And I'm willing to bet that most of you have probably never heard of it before. But once you understand it, you will never look at your child's reading struggles the same way again. All right, let's get into it. First question. What in the world is phonemic awareness? This is a very technical term, right? So, technically speaking, it is the ability to notice and to play with the sounds that are in spoken words. So, very simply, it's just being able to hear the individual sounds that are in a word. And in some aspects, it's also being able to put some of those sounds together, and then it's also being able to kind of play, or what we call manipulate, those sounds. So we're going to be talking about all of those different things as we're going through. But just understand that it is the foundation for being able to connect letters and sounds, which is required to be able to read and to spell. All right, so let's get into the meat here. So 3 different areas. We have blending and segmenting and manipulating. Those are 3 different tasks, we'll say, within phonemic awareness, and all 3 are very important. So let's start with blending in particular. All right, so blending is the ability to push individual sounds together to form a word. So let's do an example, right? Let's say I gave you a sound, and that sound is okay? Now I gave you the next sound, that's and then I give you the last sound, and that's p. And now I'm going to tell you, I want you to put all those 3 sounds together, and a and p. So if we put those all together, we end up with the word map, okay? And that's what that arrow is demonstrating, is we're taking all those 3 sounds, we're blending them together. Now, notice I don't have letters on the page, and that's specific because we're not talking letters just yet, okay? We're just talking about sounds that we're hearing. So, p, that's the word map, okay? And so here's just a little visual. That is the word map. So here's the important thing. What we're doing when we are blending the sounds together, that is helping us to be able to read words, right? So blending is where reading begins. So if you think about this, when I am looking at a particular word in a sentence, for example, this word right here that is in pink right here, okay? So if I'm trying to sound that particular word out and I'm not able to really blend all those sounds together, I'm not even going to be able to read the word. All I can do is say that, well, I see a P and that says P, and I see the I and that says I, and then I see the CK, and I know that together that makes the K sound. But if that's all I can do, I will never be able to understand that this word says pick. So being able to blend those sounds is a very important phonemic awareness task. And some of our kiddos are having trouble with that. So it can be that they know their letters and sounds, but they're not able to correctly blend those sounds together to make the word. So that is blending. And let's look at the next one, which is segmenting. So segmenting is actually the opposite of blending. So segmenting is the ability to break a word apart into its individual sounds. Let's say we started with the word pet, and we want to break that word into the individual sounds, okay? So we'll listen for the first sound in pet, p, 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 Okay, it's going to be the p sound. All right, and then the next sound, pet. See, p, would be the next sound. And then the last sound, pet, that would be the t sound, right? So what we're doing here is we're breaking that word into its different sounds, and the next step would be assigning letters to those sounds, which is exactly where spelling begins. So you can see here, if we're not able to correctly segment the sounds, then we're going to have some difficulty being able to actually spell the word because we can't hear the sounds and put the letters to those sounds. All right, so just a little bit of an example here. So let's say we had the word back, right? Like the back of our body. So we are listening to those sounds and we have b, a, k. Okay. So then we go, okay, what says b? And then we would say, oh, well, B says b, right? And then what says a? Well, the A is going to say the a sound. And then what says k? And this is where some spelling knowledge, some spelling generalizations come in, because we have a few different ways of spelling the k sound. So how do we spell k at the end of a one-syllable word with a short vowel? Well, that's going to be CK. So now, because I was able to divide the sounds or be able to segment the sounds that I heard in that word, now I can actually spell if I know the letters that go with those sounds. All right, so that's segmenting. The last part is manipulating. All right, so manipulating sounds. This is actually a good thing. We actually want to be able to manipulate the sounds. All right, so let's show an example of what manipulating can look like. Let's say I had the word pat. All right, I had pat, right? And I want to take off that p sound in the beginning. What do I end up with? I end up with the word at, because pat without that p in the beginning is going to be at. This is one example of manipulating. Now, the other example is instead of deleting a sound, maybe we can substitute the sound. So we can put a different sound in its place. So I have the word pat, but instead of saying p, I want to say s. So I would replace that p sound in my mind with a s and then put it back together, and that would be sat. Now you can see this is a more complex task for phonemic awareness. So manipulating is usually a task that we're doing towards the end after we really understand blending and segmenting. So one of the questions that is raised sometimes is, well, what's the point? What's the point in being able to do this? Well, manipulating, and as you can see, we have a lot of different ways of doing that. We can do manipulation with the first part of the word or the end part of the word. But here's the thing, manipulating is actually where word families begin. So when we start to understand, or we have decoded certain words, and those are locked into our memory bank, and we're being able to see that some other words look very similar to that, it helps us to be able to read those words. So for example, if I have the word rocket, but I change that first r sound, and now I put a p in its place, now I have pocket. And so if I understand that concept, then I'm going to be able to read this word a little bit easier because I have already decoded rocket, and I understand the and the k and the it on the end there. So rocket and pocket. Now if I change the p into a s, right, now I have socket. So I'm actually showing you with letters, but when we're doing this, we're not using letters. Again, this is just sounds. So I'm just showing you how this actually relates to a reading task or a spelling task. So that is phonemic awareness. I hope you can see how important that is to being able to read and also being able to spell. So before we move on, I want to make sure you have something practical to take with you from today. So if you are watching this and you're thinking, yeah, I think my child might be having some issues with this phonemic awareness, I've actually put together a free excerpt of my phonemic awareness play. It's actually Phonemic Playbook is the name of it. So it's an activity for specifically to strengthen phonemic awareness.
So this free activity has a phonemic awareness practice in a very simple, structured way to be able to strengthen that skill. So you can actually grab that in the link in the description. All right. So next week, we're going to be talking about decoding. And that's where we take everything that we just covered and connect it to the letters that are on the page. So be sure that you're subscribed so that you do not miss this video. And if you're watching this and you're wondering, does my child have a gap here? Is phonemic awareness something that maybe they're dealing with? And you have some questions about that, feel free to reach out. So we actually offer free consultations. It's just a conversation. You can tell me what you're seeing, what you're noticing that is going on, and we can troubleshoot that. We can try to navigate that and see if it's this word recognition part of reading that they're having some difficulties with. And if so, then this is what we're here for. So if you want a free consultation, the link is also in the description. I would absolutely love to talk with you. All right, we'll see you next week.